I know the program says I'm talking about Lewisville Dam improvements. Um, but as we were sitting down with the team and we were really learning, just thinking about it. The project manager and the project engineer there at Lewisville Dam, they're going to be our experts. They're not here today. They armed me with a lot of data, a lot of information. We visited the sites. I probably up there once or twice a month. Um, Really for the recreational aspects of it, of the lake itself, not the improvements. But we have a great project going on up there at Lewisville. But again, I was talking with the team, and we were like, what is interesting that something that the Corps of Engineers can provide to y'all, and and not necessarily engineering aspect of things, but the other aspects of what the Corps of Engineers does. And so what I'll be covering today is really three topics, and one is the um, Hawaii Maui, Hawaii Maui fire wildfire response, of which has been assigned to the Fort Worth district. And we'll also talk about the Francis Scott Key Bridge and our response to that, and what the Corps of Engineers' play there is, and then we'll top it off with the Lewisville project. Technology, loving it. Okay, so really quick agenda. We put this together. That's what we do in the Army. We have agendas and we follow them. So we'll talk about the area of operations, wildfire timeline, our response, and kind of what we provide to the public as far as where we're at it within the response. So we have the emergency support functions. We partner with FEMA, and you can see there. We are assigned under the National Response Framework, the NRF, and that is coming down from the president and the holistic, the DoD response to the civil requirements of the United States. The Corps of Engineers has been assigned that mission to FEMA to act as the FEMA's engineers, and that can range from anything uh, from our blue roof missions for our tornadoes or hurricane response to the debris cleanup, and that is everything from disposal to and the management, or just really the technical observance of it to ensure that the contractors that we have put in place are doing the right thing, and they're not footing the taxpayers that are footing that bill for the response is being used properly. So a couple things that we'll talk about is the direct federal assistance, the DFA mission said, and the tech monitoring, like I just said. The direct federal assistance is where we are actively controlling and controlling the response and the disposition of the debris that's been left over after a national disaster. Okay, so we'll get into the timeline in just a minute, but just for everyone, if we haven't been to Maui, we haven't been to Hawaii, this is kind of what we're looking at. The Lahaina area is the one that's been impacted the most. There were a number of wildfires that popped up throughout the island of Maui. And Lahaina is why it's important is it was actually the original seat of power for the Kingdom of Hawaii before they became a state. They have a number of their ancestors that are born there, or excuse me, buried there, born and buried there. Excuse me. There's it's very interesting. Right off of Lahaina, kind of see the part where you have the A. They have a birthing stone where the future kings and queens of the kingdom were born. They go out. The mothers would go to the island or go out into the water, and there's a flat rock there. It's very very impactful. Um, and then we have King Kamehameha the Third. He was buried there in Lahaina, and again the fact that it was the seat of power for a long time when King Kamehameha uh, brought all of the tribes together, all of the clans together, and made it a unified state. there's a lot of history there and a lot of culture there. And the culture of Hawaii themselves are that they are connected with their ancestry very deeply. And we have a number of folks that are public leaders and public personalities that we owe it to them to preserve that lineage. So the timeline very quickly, the fires kind of sparked up on 7 August, right? Myself and my emergency management chief, Mr. Jeff Mahaffey, we deployed out there with the initial response team on think the 17th or 18th of August. So the fires were still occurring. We understand the impact that it was having and the likelihood of it being declared a national disaster by the president, which would then free up some federal resources to react. We knew that was coming, and we wanted to get the lay of the land and see where our folks would be, where they can immediately be helping, and kind of what the mission was looking like. You can see there by the 10th, the president declared a national emergency, and it was in full running mode with FEMA as lead on the 11th. And we can go through. I mean, any one of these briefs, by the way, can last all day. So I'm purposely hitting waypoint, the wave tops. Another depiction of the timeline. Again, so we sent our initial timeline or our initial debris response. And what that looked like was about a 6-member team ranging from a project manager to project engineer, real estate specialist, contract specialist. We got out there because we don't do anything by ourselves. The Corps doesn't. We entrust and we depend on our local partners as well as the community around us to give us the contracting capability, and so we can execute the mission set that have been given to us. Key takeaway here, and I'll talk about in a little minute, in just a minute, is on November 3rd. We also got so FEMA, because we didn't know what the requirements were and what the state can handle. When we get the mission set, it's really a negotiation between FEMA and the state. Texas is really good about executing their own mission sets, and they have it, and then they kind of raise their hand and say, hey, can y'all help us out with one or two things? Other states are not in that way because I mean, just financially, they depend on the national government or the federal government to execute some of their mission sets. Hawaii is in that realm where they don't have the contract capability, the labor pool, the equipment, or the functions and the mechanisms in place to execute these mission sets. So it decimated Hawaii, Maui, and they didn't have that capacity to execute. So that's when they reached out to FEMA, and then it becomes a negotiation of what do you want us to do? What can you do by yourself? And that slide rule changes as time goes on. So you'll see there we were given the critical infrastructure, which includes schooling. And there in Lahaina, we had a school, the historical Kamehameha Third School, get totally decimated, and it was gone. That was the only school on that island for kids to go to. So we were immediately impacted, not because we're displacing individuals now who lost their homes, who lost their public facilities, and now they can't go to school. So what does normal look like? And why that's important to us is we want to provide normalcy to a new situation as best we can. And this is just another slide to say what kind of those types of things I was just talking about with what the state is asking for us and what FEMA is asking us to do and what we can provide. This Venn diagram, it got too busy to lay everything over into one. But that Hawaii wildfire response there in the middle, it involves all of that stuff. So, but we are approaching this from the different the different cultural aspects, hazardous material aspects, and the community influence and requirements that they're asking for, and at which they need to return to normalcy. So this is the slide that that we've used to brief the president, and as well as his cabinet, the National Security Council, as well as FEMA, and up and down the chain. We internally have our stand-up meetings 2-3 times a week, and this is a rolling tally of what is going on, what kind of assets we have there on Maui. And as you can see, the running total is the federal government. We've invested about $1.1 billion into this recovery effort, and that, again, it's ongoing. This was taken a couple days ago, so it's a little outdated. However, you can see that we've cleared the parcels, and when we say clear the parcels, there are certain requirements, right? You've got 3 standing walls is a domicile, and it's a facility. It's a building, and we want to leave that as best we can. If it's got less than that, we will clear it to the bedrock. Excuse me, we'll clear it to the dirt, or we'll clear it to the foundation. And it really depends on what was there first, what does it need to be, but we want to make sure we do it responsibly. And when we return it to the citizens and the owners of that property, that they are then able to build as they would like on just a new piece of property. And again, they'll work through their mechanisms. There's the state and the private sector to reestablish their homes. This is where I was talking. We don't have it. This is the Kamehameha the third elementary. Excuse me, tongue-tied. King Kamehameha the third elementary school. Of all of those, Hawaii is very, very interesting. They don't have AC because it's a tropical environment. And that which they do have is usually just your window units, but that was offset and mitigated by the cross section, the crosswinds from your leeward to your windward to leeward side of the mountains. So think east and west. Usually the normal flow goes from east to west, and they have jealousy windows, the ones that you crack open, and to really cool what's going on. That kind of helped. That was one of the reasons the wildfires got out of control so quickly, is because there was a tropical depression, a hurricane down south, and it was causing that spin and just fueling that fire. In doing so, this school system only had one building that was untouched, and even of that, the conduit, the electrical conduit that they had there in the building was melted just melted. It was gone. So we've reestablished that. And you can see here on the 23rd of February, I think I was there again. That was my last day on Maui. That was the day we recommissioned and gave it back to the Department of Education there in Hawaii. And again, point being, we're training, we're teaching the kids that are going to be the new generation. And to have that quick turnaround is not normal for us. We will go in and rebuild a facility, and our timeline's 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on the complexity of it for the core. So to have this done in about 6 months, from October to February, 5 months, I mean, we were working at warp speed, and what we wanted to do for the environment that we were working in the community, it's kind of give them a sense of normalcy. Some of the other things we've established we're working on with this mission set is the other critical infrastructure. Is we're building temporary homes. Some of that has looked like your relocatable homes, but we're having to bring all of that raw material, all of those resources from off island. Right? And that's not something that we can easily do. And we're talking 500, 550 homes that we're trying to reset up in the northeast or northwest of the island, to ensure that we give people the economy gets back to the tourism that they're used to, because about 80% of their economy is based on tourism. So we're trying to help this community as quickly as possible, as safely as possible, return to normal. Okay. So again, that was a very quick rundown version of what we're doing in Maui. Um, and I failed to mention, so the debris mission set is based off of, I mean, it's a rotating thing, and we have about 6 other districts within the core, and that 6 districts, it's just a rotating thing where they have who's up on next, who's up on the Oklahoma fires, excuse me, the Oklahoma tornadoes that just happened. The mission was given to Kansas City district, and they are doing like the blue roof mission, technical assistance, technical monitoring to ensure that they are getting in there, cleaning up those communities and trying to return to normalcy as best we can. We one of our other big mission sets was Katrina and Hurricane Ike. That was a Fort Worth district mission set. That one's still ongoing because FEMA has an extended long-term field office down in Louisiana that they are still reeling from, that the community is still reeling from there. Going back to some of the resources and the assets the state has, uh, Louisiana they struggle at times, and so we as a federal government want to try to give them as much help as we can, um, again, to return to normalcy. This one, so Francis Scott Key Bridge, why it's important. This is why. $100 billion to the national economy. This is a port, and this is a federal channel that sees $100 billion a year to our economy. Give or take, it's about $23 million a day, as it was down, 23 to $25 million a day. There's also other defense um, DoD assets there in around that area, just because of local um, well, what's around there. We'll leave it at that. And it's really important for us, the federal government, to get it open, and it's really important for the Baltimore Harbor, Maryland, and DC to get it open, because quite honestly, we are apolitical. I'm here to do a job. I don't care who's in charge. All I'm doing is trying to get there and get it back to normal to ensure that we help the environment that we work and live in. Okay. So what is going on in having difficulties? I apologize. There you go. So what are we dealing with, right? We're all engineers. We deal in tons, and what does that look like? We're looking at 50,000 tons of steel and concrete from that bridge. That's just on those collapsed portions of it. That's not in the totality of that bridge. These are 3 sections of bridge that we're dealing with, right? What we don't show here, and I'm going to show you some graphics here in a minute of kind of other pictures that we're dealing with. There's a couple pipelines that run parallel underground to that bridge, and so all of this stuff is sitting on top of that. So we have to be very, very careful about how we dissect this problem and make sure, one, we don't cause more damage than it's already been done, and 2, open it up as quickly as possible, as safely as possible. This is the graphic we pulled in. This is again, this is probably 3 April, so it's really out of date. But what I wanted to do here is just show the command control structure that we deal with. We're the military, right? So there's an arc, there's a structure, or an org structure that we deal with. Right now, for this mission set, the Coast Guard is lead for this one, because we have been empowered by Congress to enforce the Rivers and Harbors Act. As the Corps of Engineers, it is our responsibility that we ensure that this gets done the right way. And the right way is, there's many ways to skin a cat. This is our way, right? However, there on the center bottom, those are all of the entities that we are dealing with. Got, again, the Coast Guard, and again, those numbers up top are off. I think we've got about, yeah, that's similar, about 350 folks on ground right now in totality. But we're looking at, we got the Coast Guard, we got the Corps of Engineers, Maryland Department of Environment, Transportation, the State Police, the Synergy Marine that controls the bridge itself, and all those ones out there on the right. Those are partners that we're working with and through to react to this mission. And if we don't, think about cleaning your house, right? And I know you all know this. Think about cleaning your house. You got 18 people on one room that can get out of whack really, really quick. Some people just kind of sit there and we don't know what you're doing. You're just sitting in the corner. Some people are undoing what this other guy did. So this takes a deliberate effort, and we sitting down with the governor of Maryland, the all the federal entities there on the right, to ensure that we're not undoing all the good work that have been accomplished, and or putting in jeopardy something further on down the road. So a couple of our objectives, and again, one of the first tenets of us being engineers, what do? Define the problem, right? Define the problem, and then you assign objectives, and what are you doing with that problem? You can read there, A, B, and C there in the bottom center. Those are our objectives. Those are our priorities. These are working in tandem with one another. And so some of them are getting more attention than others because of the prep work that needs to be done to say stabilize the boat. And again, this is something. This is a graphic that we use to really capture what the daily activities, where we're at on the timeline, and really to very quickly assign or to articulate what it is that our objectives are. Objectives: clear the channel, refloat the dolly, remove the remaining wreckage. Again, this is not the whole bridge. It's just 3 spans. And it's taking this much effort to fix this bridge. We're not even talking about rebuilding it yet. We can't, because we got to get the old stuff out of the way. There, just want to capture, we're doing this under our federal authorities, and there's a couple of the ones that we have that have been delineated us to by the EPA and some of the other federal agencies. But this is all within our authority to do, and obviously I think we've got the most, besides the state of Maryland and Baltimore, the harbor itself. We are invested in this, and we want to make sure it gets done the right way. So this is one of the graphics that we're using. So this is any opportunity, any event provides us opportunities to use either emerging technology or just new ideas, because we want to make sure that we're doing it the most efficient way possible, and we're getting the best use of our money and our time. So this is one of the graphics that have been presented to us using 3D mapping, LiDAR systems in the water, and you can see all of it. Doesn't show the minute detail that we'll need as our divers get down in the water and start doing cuts of steel and concrete in the water. However, this kind of gives us an idea of the complexity of the wreckage itself. The other one was just another visual. So you can see, so one of our immediate objectives was to clear the federal channel. We've taken that in bite pieces, and we're saying, what can we do right now to open up and get commerce back into that port, right? So we've kind of partitioned it up and said, let's look at a limited access channel with a 35-foot, 38-foot depth, so we can get boats out in and out of that harbor. However, our goal is to get back to that 50-foot depth and use the whole of the channel itself. But this will allow us to get something in and out, so we can start doing it on executing business on a limited basis. So just for um, the magnitude of the problem set, right? So that little circle up there, that's a guy. That's a guy standing there, and this isn't a small problem. Like physically, it's not a small problem. And again, we're looking at the tonnage that's involved with this, and what there is kind of gives us another snapshot of what we're dealing with. So dive operations. We, and as Army engineers, one of our aspects is, again, not just only explosives, not building things, not demolishing things. Um, it's Army diving, right? So we have divers in the ground or in the water that are looking at this problem and trying to best choose the cut points that they need to without that damn thing falling on top of their heads, right? So it's very dangerous. You see there that very low visibility picture. That is what our divers are seeing in the ground. So they do it in partners. They've got a primary diver, a secondary diver, as well as we have video. Right? So we have somebody on the ground up on the seashore or on a boat nearby that is working with that diver to ensure that they're not getting snagged on their any rebar, any jagged material, any jagged steel that's in the ground or in the water. So it's a very difficult mission set, and that's one of our tenets. We don't want to put anybody in the water that unsafely, and the national environment that we deal with has a say, right? So you got, if it's stormy, I think a couple weeks ago they had a pretty big storm about a month ago. They had a pretty big storm as a nor'easter that went through. We couldn't execute operations because our guys on top of the water couldn't execute safely for the guys under the water. And all that storm creates churn down there, which kind of makes the scenario even more muddy. So dangerous job. I can get claustrophobic. I don't want to do it. So I'm glad somebody does. And again, our intent there is to after the phase one happens, we're going to refloat the flotilla, or excuse me, the dolly, and there's a number of things that comes with that. Is stabilizing those shipping containers so they don't fall into the water and creating more debris for us to deal with. Then you can see there how our guys do a very deliberate job, very deliberate stance and approach to what we do and how we identify what cuts, how we're cutting, whether it be mechanical, um, explosive or dynamic. And we use all these techniques to ensure that we're getting the right effect based off of the need. This is kind of an overview of what we're trying to do, right? So you can see there where the dolly is, what it is impacting as far as the main shipping lane, and what we're in charge of opening up. And we can see there where we've kind of opened up and we've dredged some areas out to ensure some of that limited capacity for the traffic in and out on the temporary lanes. Um, and one of the ways we did that is we actually took 100-ton dredge machine from Galveston, and it floated around the coast, and it's there in Baltimore Harbor to help dredge out and make that channel a little bit deeper. So it is definitely a holistic approach for throughout the Corps of Engineers, and different districts are able to go out there and get some experience and provide to the effort. Who here is in media? I would offer all of us are, right? Because our friends over on the highways, if something goes bad on the highway and it shuts down that highway for 3 minutes, 3 hours on 35, who's that going to affect? Right? You know, all it takes for us is one disjointed individual or team to jump in front of a camera and or on social media that to say, hey, I'm being screwed over because of X or Y, you know, and going back to kind of the Hawaii response, I had to laugh. It was kind of masochistic, but I had to laugh because we had a guy. The media will reach out to anybody who's willing to talk and tell them something. There was a specialist, a retired specialist from Hawaii, and you know, a specialist, give or take about 6 years of experience. Uh, is a retired specialist on Hawaii, standing in front of the Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, and could not understand why the federal government wasn't there yet to help. We have all of these assets on Hawaii that could reach out and help immediately. Problem is, that's only half the statement, right? So we can't employ federal assets into a civilian world without some blowback. We're not creating martial law. There's rules and regulations that we are bound by, and rightfully so, by Congress. Could you imagine if, you know, say the 101st just showed up downtown Dallas and said, "This is where you're going to do business"? How many of us would be irritated about that, right? So we have to be careful. We have a deliberate plan that we engage with the media, and that's through both FEMA, the Coast Guard, and Maryland, and there's constant communication, crosstalk with all these organizations to ensure that we're providing the same message, and that message is getting out above the naysayers, above the people, the armchair quarterbacks of, well, what happened was we don't want that to happen. And the only way we can get around that is to make sure we over communicate what we're doing and that we're doing it safely, and to ensure that the economy is able to jump back and get up in the full swing as quickly as possible, safely as possible. Get there, I promise. Okay, so Lewisville Dam. Couple. But Julie did a really good job, kind of give us the rundown of the project. There's a lot of stuff in there that I wasn't even aware of because it was before the Corps' time. We were, as a Corps, established to be a flood fighting district. And that was due to all the flooding that was coming off of the Trinity, off of the Colorado, and really impacting our environment and our communities downstream, right? So I'm gonna give you a couple numbers, and it's gonna be kind of eye-opening because it's a problem set that, if not handled properly, can get out of control really quickly, and then we're dealing with people's lives, and that's not something that any of us want to mess up on. So the overall capacity of Lewisville Lake right now is 940,000 cubic feet or acre feet, excuse me. So that has increased even since it began from the 40,000 that was initially intended for. What I also want to tell you is that we are at the flood pool is 532 feet above sea level, right? So what that means for us is at 532.1, stuff starts coming over the sides of the dam. And that's when we're starting to put water in people's front yards. We don't want to do that because it impacts people's livelihoods. However, our water management plan and our water management division, in correlation with the emergency management environment or emergency management of Dallas and, you know, communities and surrounding environments, we constantly talk back and forth, right? And if there'll be a number here in a minute that if let go, if kept unmanaged or mismanaged, it's going to impact a lot of people and cause a lot of damage. So how we approach this problem was through a couple things called the ERCA, which was the Environmental Cleanup Responsibility Act. There was a survey that was done in 2010 to 2014. And again, federal government, we don't do a lot of things fast, but we want to make sure it's complete and everyone it's done the right way, and we are gathering all the the correct data that we need to look at and filtering out the stuff that is just on the peripheries. So based off of the 2010, 2014 study, we identified some fixes, some things that we needed to address, and that is what that was through. That resulted in another study called the DSMS, the Dam Safety Modification Study. We understood that it was at that point, 2016, give or take, it was about 50, 60 years old. Right? So this dam was built with about 70-year technology. And we've made some improvements since then, right? I hope. Um, and we've also increased efficiencies. So it was established to control for flood control coming off the Trinity, like it was stated, and for the water supply, the main water supply of Dallas. We put this one up here because it's, and Julie alluded to it, or really said it. So we have a system of retention ponds or flood management lakes that range from north up at Lake Ray Roberts all the way down to Benbrook and Grapevine. Right, so it's a system that's been put in place to manage the flooding, right? And we're still learning how water will react to the new obstacles we put up there or what we do, and it'll change things quite quickly. And just a little tweak here, tweak there. We understand that we can help people and keep water where we want it to be, not elsewhere. In general, the Fort Worth district, we manage about 25 lake reservoirs throughout the state of Texas. That's about 1/3 of the surface water, right? Of those places, of those 25 reservoirs, we try to, it's multi-use, multi-directional of how we can interact with that environment, whether it be recreational, water supply, flood risk management. Those are the types of things that we're looking at. But we were established as a district in the late 40s to manage flood risk in the DFW greater area, and we have since expanded out. So the potential failure, and as engineers, we understand that we have to assess risk in everything we do. Right, so we created in concert with industry, we created really a matrix, because we love matrix, we love numbers, of rating our risk, and that is through the potential failure mode. And you see there that plot on the right side of the slide. That's kind of what we're looking at, and we use this to assess risk, and thus we can assign measures to mitigate those risks, and the intent is to bring to zero. But we all know you will never get to absolute zero with a risk. There are other things out there that we can't mitigate away. So during the DSS, the Dam Safety Modification Survey, we identified 2 risks for that of Lewisville Lake. One was listed there in PFM 4 and PFM 6 and 7. What that is internal erosion to the dam itself, and it was back eroding, and what the possible outcomes of that would be, as well as PFM 6 and 7 with a weir stability on the spillway itself. And again, why are we placing so much emphasis on this one dam? As stated previously, it's the largest dam in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, meaning it's going to be the most impactful if something bad were to happen. we're looking at 431,000 people in the inundation zone. That is to include downtown Dallas. Of that, we're looking at $23.4 billion in potential damages. And that is both private and federal damages that, and these are numbers that we're looking at, I think in 16 off of that study. So you can imagine what inflation has done. So we're probably well north of that. But this is why this is important. This is why we're putting so much emphasis on this one project to ensure that we're doing it the right way. So the approach to the problem set that we're looking at is we identify the problems and we develop opportunities. That's on your left and right of the slides, right? So the identified problems that are on the left, the possible opportunities, develop opportunities to mitigate on the right. We look yearly. We have yearly assessments on this project as well as all the other projects that we do, meaning the dams and the levees that we manage. And we, in concert with the surrounding areas, that those of which we don't own, but that could impact the negatively impact the economy or the people in the surrounding area, we work in concert with the local communities to ensure that they get inspected and things get addressed as well. So we have a very robust assessment team that goes out and they go on a rotational basis to talk with all of our private and public partners with the surrounding areas. And again, the goal is to reduce the risk, the probability of the uncontrollable release of water. We all know what that means, right? We want to make sure that the system in place is sound and it doesn't fail. A couple things we consider is protection of life, protection of property, the economic considerations, and the environmental considerations. Those are all tenets that we address through our process, and we keep them back in our minds when our assessors go out to look at these projects. See here, this is a chart that we use to just kind of address and provide some of the mitigation measures to address the PFMs. The Corps of Engineers, Fort Worth District and specifically, our sole purpose is to protect life, provide safety, and we prioritize that, right? Now, when you're going into a project like this, it's hard to weigh whose life is more important. So we don't. We bring in other criteria that we assess the risk on, and then we address as necessary. We don't do that in a vacuum. We don't do that in a stovepipe. We do that with our partners. We go and we talk to the Dallas city managers. We talk to the Grapevine city managers. I cannot emphasize enough. One of my takeaways is working with this job is how much we communicate what we are doing with our partners to ensure that we are all on the same page. Nobody gets caught flat-footed, and everybody has the ability to react if necessary, or to let everyone to tell their populace what's going on with the projects and what their reactions are. Again, so this is kind of again, from the 2016, I believe, is what we're looking at. The population at risk. We're looking at the potential damage if we didn't do anything, and the population at risk continues to grow, impacting more people, more property, more lives. So this is something that we provide to Congress because we do not lobby Congress for work. We are busy. We are a federal entity in the DoD, right? So we provide this from our studies to say, hey, this is what we're dealing with, guys and gals. Our congressional leaders are the ones who take the looks, and then we provide this assessment to them, and then we can tell them why it's important, and then they tell us what is important. So it says tentative plan up there. I took this from kind of a dated slideshow. Um, but what this provides is the systemic approach that we use to address the issues during that were identified during the 2014-16 dam safety modification survey. And it's really what are we how are we approaching this problem set here, and we're about to go really fast. So um, there, that first phase is complete, and the second phase, the PED construction, that's the actual installation of the weirs that we've using. And I want if the number of 175 comes out in my mind, right? So we've got 175 75-foot weirs that we've drilled down into the ground through the spillway to make sure it gets stabilized. And of that, we work with the industry to figure out what works, right? So introducing water into a closed environment, i.e. the spillway, that's bad, right? So you get backwards erosion, and we don't want that. So we work with industry to figure out how do you drill 75 feet down without water through concrete, right? So there's a number of methods that we've used, and it's really um, whether it be gels and understanding the concrete that was poured in the 40s wasn't reinforced, and we want to make sure that we capture that and we address those issues, those individual techniques through really trial and error, but not on the site itself. Um, so our team has really worked really well with each other, and it is a team effort of how this is getting addressed. Something there is, so the majority of the project itself is federally funded. We do have private partners through, because along the levee, along the dam itself, we have industry, whether it be utilities, ground, or I'm sorry, electrical or oil that run in and around that area. And there, we work with them to ensure that those get, removed or rerouted as necessary. So there's a lot of private funding that comes into this to ensure that we're doing it the right way, and it's the holistic approach, and we're not, everyone's seen that line, you got the highway line painter, and they go around the tree branch on the edge. We don't want that to happen. So we're asking folks to move their stuff and giving them time, and that's how we're addressing those issues. So like I said, the purpose of our district is to provide life and safety, and it is paramount to what we do in everything that we do. Protect property. We keep those are all parts of the calculus that come into play. Feedback, we constantly ask for the feedback of the industry to see what we're doing, because we don't do this by ourselves. There's nothing that we can do by ourselves, very little, without the authorities. So we exist to ensure water doesn't end up in your home, or if it does, it's mitigated to the point where it's manageable. And we work with our local community leaders and our communities in general, because our folks live and work in the area. We've got about 1,200 employees that work for the Fort Worth district. Right? 17 of those wear a uniform. So the other 99% of folks that work in our district live in our communities. So it's kind of self-serving that we do this the right way. I know I went probably over a little bit, and I apologize for that, but kind of open the floor for any questions. And if I don't have the answers, I will tell you. I'm not going to make shit up. Excuse me. Uh, but I'd like to open the floor for questions, comments.
And as a reminder, please raise your hand with any questions and I will come to you.
You mentioned that the drill shafts were drilled underwater. What process did you use that?
The 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 pilot holes for the weirs.
Yes.
So it was a it was a dry drill that they would pipe in and remove the water as necessary. So almost it was like a pumping system that as it went down, it was followed with the pump coming out. So we're trying to not introduce any water into that, or as little as water is needed, to ensure that the bits didn't seize up. So that was it was something that they worked on. Can't remember the company, but it was one of our subs that really worked on it within their labs to see the less water used, the better, because we didn't want to damage the integrity of the spillway itself. So it was a tried and it was worked probably 3, 4, or 5 different 700 times to ensure that it was the right method. But that I don't know the name of it, other than what we use is just kind of the pumping out of it, pumping out of the water as it was introduced.
All right, thank you. Let's have a round of applause.
Thank you.